Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads. Today we start Kirsten Learns a Lesson. Chapter 1, Miss Winston. Kirsten hurried down the path beside her cousin Lisbeth. In one hand she carried a lunch in her wooden hind. With the other she held her shawl tightly around her shoulders. "You're walking too fast," Kirsten said, but Lisbeth didn't slow down. "Mr. Coogan will be really angry if we're late. He's really strict," she answered. Elizabeth was 11. Mr. Coogan had been her teacher since she was 9. She loved to tell stories how fierce he was. In fact, ever since July, when Kirsten and her family had come to live on Uncle Olaf's farm, Elizabeth and her sister Anna had talked about Mr. Coogan in Powder Keg School. Now it was November. The harvest was over and it was time for the fall term to begin. Today would be Kirsten's first day in an American school. Kirsten walked as fast as she could keep up with Elizabeth's longer stride. Her boots puffed up with dust. Anna, who was just 7, tagged farther behind. "Wait for me," she called. "I want to stop for a drink of water." Kirsten and Elizabeth stopped beside the stream. A light mist rose from the clear water, and a few yellow leaves landed on it. Kirsten stopped and put her fingertip into a deer track in the sand. How she wished she could stay here by the stream instead of going to school. "If you mind him, Mr. Coogan will like you," Elizabeth said, "but he gets really angry when the big boys fight." "In Sweden, the boys weren't allowed to fight in school," Kirsten said. Elizabeth smiled and tossed her head. "Well, this is America, and here the boys get wild whether they should or not. Sometimes Mr. Coogan hits them with his cane. Once he punched Amos Anderson with his fist. If you talk back to Mr. Coogan, he swats your hand with his ruler." Anna wiped her mouth on the back of her hand. Her round cheeks were rosy from running along the path. "He's mean, but he'll never hit you, Kirsten. You're too nice." "Don't worry." Kirsten let out a long breath. "I'm not really worried," she said, but she was dizzy, the way that she felt on the ship before she was seasick. "Does your stomach hurt?" Anna asked. "When I'm scared, my stomach hurts and flutters like there's a bird inside me." Kirsten put her hand to her waist. Yes, her stomach did feel full of wings. Butterflies, maybe. And she hadn't been able to eat the pancakes Mama made for breakfast. "My stomach hurts a little," she admitted. "I was really scared the first day I went to school," Anna said. "I wonder if the others would like me. It's hard to be the new girl." Elizabeth slipped her arm through Kirsten's as they started along the path again. "Just do what we do, Kirsten. You'll get along fine in school." Kirsten sighed. "But I can't do what you do. I only speak a little bit of English, and I can't write a word of it. I won't fit in at all." How she wished she were back in her village in Sweden, where she knew everyone and everyone knew her, and they all spoke the same language. "School only lasts until 4 o'clock, Anna added. "If it ends at 4, what time does it start?" "When it's over, we can stop at our fort and play for a few minutes." She darted off to hide their dolls in a secret hideaway under the cherry tree. On her way back, she broke off a sprig of bittersweet and handed Kirsten a few of the waxy red berries. "We can put berries in our doll cakes," Kirsten said. "Come on," Elizabeth said. "I heard the school bell." She began to run. And suddenly, before Kirsten was ready, they were in clearing in front of the large log cabin that was Powder Keg School. The last children were just going out the door. Powder Keg School didn't look very different from the log cabin Kirsten and her family lived in on Uncle Olaf's farm. But the school had more windows and a stovepipe oven stuck up the center of the roof. "That's the outhouse," Anna said. She pointed to a red shed behind the log cabin. "Girls use it before boys do at recess. I won't let any boys peek at you, I promise." Kirsten hadn't thought of that. What a lot of things she had to be worried about. She peered around Elizabeth's shoulder into the schoolhouse. Children were finding places to sit on the benches that lined up the walls. Only her brothers, Lars and Peter, looked familiar. Lars sat with other boys. Peter was with the younger boys, some even smaller than he. Kirsten took a deep breath, as though she were about to dive into the stream. She followed Anna and Elizabeth through the door. Elizabeth pulled off her shawl and hung it on a peg. Kirsten draped hers over it. For a moment she let her forehead rest against the comforting wool that smelled of wood smoke. Then she turned and looked around. A pot-bellied wood stove sat in the opening space in the center room. Instead of the fearsome Mr. Coogan, a young woman in a black dress sat on the teacher's chair by the stove. She watched Kirsten and her cousins as they walked to the benches on the girls' side of the room. But she didn't smile or welcome. "We have a new teacher," Elizabeth whispered as she and Kirsten sat down. The young teacher stood and tapped the stove with a ruler to get everyone's attention. Her dark hair was perfectly clean in the middle. Her chin was up and her shoulders were back like a soldier's. "I am Miss Winston," she said in a crisp voice. "I've come west from Camden, Maine, and I'm to be your teacher because Mr. Coogan was injured when his horse threw him." She looked to see if all the students had heard her. "I hope his horse stepped on him too," a black-haired boy said out loud. "That's Amos Anderson," Elizabeth whispered. Miss Winston faced Amos. "You will not talk out of turn in my classroom. Although we live in the woods, we are not savages like the Indians." Amos grinned and looked down at his big hands. He had broad shoulders and beginnings of a mustache. Kirsten thought he looked more like a man than a boy. "Now you know my name," Miss Winston continued, "but I don't know yours. I'd like each of you to come forward and introduce yourself to me politely. We are ladies and gentlemen here at the Powder Keg School." And Anna was the first to go forward. She made a quick curtsy and said, "Anna Larson, ma'am." Miss Winston nodded. "Very good. Next, please." Kirsten tried to remember the names of the girls, but her head buzzed like a hive of bees. She didn't want to walk out there in the middle of the room with everyone watching her. She was the last girl to take her turn. The floor seemed to move under her as she stepped forward. She kept her gaze on her dusty boots as she made her curtsy. "Kirsten Larson," she said. Before she could escape back to the bench, Mrs. Winston said firmly, "Say, Kirsten Larson, ma'am." "Ma'am," Kirsten repeated, but the word didn't sound right. She felt like a brush prickle at the base of her throat. Miss Winston bent over to look Kirsten right in the eye. "Do you speak English?" she asked. "A little, ma'am." The buzz in Kirsten's ears was so loud she could hardly hear her own words, but she heard one of the girls giggle at her halting English. "She's our cousin, Miss Winston," Anna said. "She came to America last summer. We speak Swedish at home, ma'am." Miss Winston raised her eyebrows and said, "Ah, well, you will speak English here in school, Kirsten, and you'll begin with the easiest lessons. Anna will shut her book and help you. Do you understand?" Kirsten nodded. "Say, I understand, ma'am," Miss Winston reminded her. "If you're going to learn English, you must practice. Practice makes perfect." Now it was Amos who laughed at Kirsten. When Miss Winston's eyes narrowed, she motioned for Kirsten to sit down on the bench. Then Miss Winston rolled around and raised her ruler over her head and brushed it smashing down on the top of the iron stove. The crack went through the room like a shot of a rifle. "My father could not be a ship's captain if he weren't in charge of his crew. I couldn't be a teacher if I weren't in charge of my students." Again, she raised the ruler and smacked the stove. "This is your first lesson," she said. Miss Winston hit the stove. Miss Winston is the subject of the sentence. Hit is the verb. The direct object of hit is the stove. Be careful that the direct object of hit isn't the student. Do you have any questions? No one said a single thing. Good. Now you boys, please come and introduce yourselves. Remember, you're gentlemen, not savages. The littlest boys went first. They spoke their names and bowed. Even Peter, who was only 5, took his turn easily. He learned a lot of English without even seeming to try, Kirsten thought. It was Lars's turn. He said, "I'm Lars Larson, ma'am," in a loud voice that everyone could hear easily. Lars wasn't afraid of anything, not even the teacher who seemed so strict. Mom had cut his hair last night, and it hugged his head like a bright cap. Amos, with his dark mustache and eyes like the color of blue paint, he was much taller than Mrs. Winston. He looked as tall as Uncle Olaf. "Amos Anderson, ma'am," he said. He bobbed his head instead of bowing. "Which reading book are you using, Amos?" Miss Winston asked him. "I finished the 3rd one, ma'am." He worked at the girls' bench. "Only the 3rd? How old are you?" Miss Winston asked. "I'm 19, Amos drawled. "Same as you." Mrs. Winston looks older than 19. Miss Winston tapped her palm with a ruler and considered him. Yes, Amos, I am 19 too, but I am the teacher and you're the student. I'm here to help you read and do sums the way a man must. He sets to make his way in the world. Please set a good example for the others. Amos' face turned red. He looked at Mrs. Winston closely. Why don't I get a bucket of water so that children have all the drink before we start reading, he said. Thank you, Amos. That's a good idea, Miss Winston said. Amos grabbed one of the wooden buckets. Through the small window, Kirsten saw him run like a deer toward the stream. Mrs. Winston stood with her to the door. While we wait for our drink of water, we'll sing a good song. Singing is very good exercise. It brings fresh air into our lungs. Keeping time with her ruler, she sang, Be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. Her voice was firm and clear. Everyone sang along. Home. The word was as sweet as clover honey on Kirsten's lip. How she wished she were home in Sweden, where she was comfortable, where she could be herself, or with Mama in their cozy cabin, or anywhere here with Miss Winston in Powder Keg School. Soon the singing stopped, and Amos was back with a bucket of water. He sat on the bench and handed Anna the dipper so she could get a drink. Girls first, he said, as though he were in charge here, not Miss Winston. If Miss Winston minded, she didn't show it. She was busy passing out books, small slates, and slate pencils. Anna leaned against Kirsten's shoulder and opened the book to the alphabet section. She ran her finger down the page to the picture of a dog. D, dog. Doesn't this dog look like a brownie when he smells a fox? Anna said, See, here are the letters that spell dog. Copy them on your slate like I do. Kirsten took her slate and did as Anna told her to. Once in a while, Anna licked her finger and erased one of Kirsten's letters, and he had started again. Kirsten pressed her tongue against her upper lip and tried hard. Around the other children worked out their reading. Some of them read out loud. When Miss Winston came to check Kirsten's work, she says, It seems Anna is a good teacher. Can you read what you've written here? Dog, Kirsten said proudly. She hoped Miss Winston might say she had done well. Instead, Miss Winston pointed to Anna's slate. You must learn to write The Dog Can Run, as Anna has done, she said. I love school, don't you? Anna whispered. Kirsten glanced up at the dusty wood plains. It was still early morning. The first day of school was going to be a long one. Early morning and it's till 4? Ugh. She sighed and wrote again on her slate. At the first day of school was over, on the way home, Kirsten and her cousins stopped to play in their fort under the cherry tree. Anna fetched the doll she had hidden that morning. Anna and Elizabeth rag dolls had pretty painted faces, but Kirsten's doll didn't even have a face. It was an outgrown stocking stuffed with milkweed floss. Kirsten's real doll, Sorry, was still in the painted trunk bed stored in Riverton. Kirsten missed her doll so much that she named her sock doll Little Sorry. Hello, children, Anna said to her dolls in her high voice. Come introduce yourselves like ladies. To Kirsten, she said, Do you think Miss Winston is nice? I don't know, Kirsten said. She likes you, Anna. I don't think she likes me. And remember how she scolded? Yeah, she was fierce, Anna said. Is that what Mr. Coogan was like? Kirsten asked. No, he was much worse, Elizabeth answered. Let's play school, Anna suggested. She patted down the long, soft grass, picked out 3 red somatic leaves for benches. The girl sat their dolls down a row. We'll pretend it's lunchtime, Kirsten said. She thought lunch had been the only good part of the school day. After she had eaten her bread and cheese and sausage, she played tree tag with the others in the schoolyard. In tag, it didn't matter that Kirsten couldn't speak English well because she was one of the fastest runners. Now Elizabeth placed a little cake made of dried mud in front of each doll. Here's your lunch, children, she said. One mud cake was decorated with gooseberries, one with acorn caps, one with sunflower seeds and star pattern. Anna clapped her hands and scolded the dolls. No, children, don't eat so fast. Remember, you are not savages like the Indians. She sounded exactly like Miss Winston. When Kirsten laughed, she lost some of the flutters that had been in her stomach all day. What does savage mean? She asked Elizabeth. Elizabeth made a scary face and pretended her hands were scratching claws. Savage means wild. Are the Indians really savage? Kirsten asked. Some people say the Indians are kind, Elizabeth said as she gave her doll a second cake. They say the Indians gave them deer meat and corn when they needed food. But other people say the Indians are cruel and bloodthirsty. An Indian came to our door once when Mama was roasting pork. Anna said, Mama gave him a piece of meat and he went away. He didn't hurt us, but didn't say thank you either, Elizabeth said. He looked savage, Anna said. He had red paint painted on his cheeks and eagle feathers in his hair. He didn't wear trousers. And we didn't come in the doorway. We looked up and suddenly he was in the doorway. Anna's eyes were wide. That's Indian magic. Elizabeth laughed. It's not magic, Anna. They just wear soft shoes, that's all. They wear long knives too, Anna said. She shivered and hugged her doll. They live in tents. Papa's worried about the Indians, Elizabeth said. He says if we plant crops on their hunting land, the wild animals will go away. He says the Indians won't have enough to eat then. They'll sure be angry. I don't know. Her voice trailed off and she looked at Kirsten with her gray eyes. Papa says we need the land too. Do the Indians live in their tent all winter? Don't they get cold? Asked Kirsten. I don't know, Elizabeth said. You're too curious, Kirsten. Let's play school. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.